Hello, I'm so happy I got a hold of you. Welcome to another exciting episode of Lucious Showcase. I am Lucious T, and today we are taking a look at a game that I've been wanting to play for years, and that is Breath of Fire 4 on the PlayStation. Now, I've heard a lot of people say that this is their preferred version of the game on the PlayStation. Going into it, I don't know if you guys have seen, but when I did my top 50 games of all time, I even forgot to leave this one off the list, which it should have been, and that is Breath of Fire 3. This was what I always called the third RPG that really got me into it on the PlayStation. Of course, there's Final Fantasy VII. It was then solidified with Final Fantasy Tactics. But I also picked up Breath of Fire 3 in short succession, and it kind of makes the trilogy of the early art, and not Mario RPG, but still, Breath of Fire 3, loved it. Always heard about 4, have heard people say 4 is better, heard people say that 4 is just as good, been looking forward to playing it. Now, I bought this complete a while ago, but I didn't notice it at the time, and I don't know if the listing said, but this has a freaking blockbuster. You see that little thing right there? It's got a blockbuster thing back in the day that you can't remove it. It's like right there. And when I put the disc in, it froze at the very beginning of the game, like, I don't know, 10 minutes in. And then one time when I was playing later in the game, it froze during a boss battle. So I was really freaking out that I'd have to buy a new copy. Luckily, I got past that part at the beginning by just cleaning the disc, and then I read something online that said flip your PS2 over, and it worked. And then the frozen boss fight, when I got to it the second time, I got through it, and then I didn't have a single problem after that. Anyways, enough about logistics. Let's talk about the game. So first and foremost, when I started it, the art style immediately turned me off a bit. And that was one of the reasons why when I've looked at screenshots of the game, Breath of Fire 3 had a little bit darker, not edgier, but just a darker, more realistic, more mature vibe. Whereas this one looked more anime, looked a little bit more cartoony. I have to agree with just that sentiment overall for the game, even though there is some pretty heavy subject matter. I mean, you got human sacrifice, senseless murder. Like, there's some deep stuff in here, but the art style kind of belies it, in my opinion, compared to the first game. You play as Ryu again, and then you have a team of 5 other people which you collect throughout the journey, some of which are more interesting than others, like Siasis, however you say, the dog guy. He's kind of worthless in my opinion. His whole story arc is not that interesting, but Kershin, the big robot android thing, is amazing. I love that storyline. The same thing, Ursula was very interesting. And then Cray, who in Breath of Fire 3, I fell in love with Ray, which is also like the tiger guy, which also in these worlds, they have frogmen, you know, dogmen, humans, like it's weird. Like they just have all kinds of humanoid animal type people. But yes, Cray is basically just kind of similar to Ray. Like, I didn't realize, I guess Breath of Fire does this a lot, where it has similar characters that they play in each different version. So to see immediately as I turn the game on, you have Cray, I'm like, okay, this can be a good time. So the plot line is Cray and Nina's the flying chick, are searching for her sister Alina, and then Ryu is one half of the first emperor of this land, who, his name is Fou-Lou or Fou-Lou. They're summoned back to this world, which in this world, dragons are immortal beings that become gods, but in their land, they're just dragons. It's normal, but they get summoned to this land and then they become watchers over it. And Fou-Lou was the original empire of the Fou-Lou Empire, and so he's been fated to come back and either, I think, bring prosperity or bring ruin. But when he's summoned, it doesn't go right, so they summoned in half. So half of him is his old personality, and then the other half of him is Ryu, which Nina stumbles upon, and then that accelerates the whole plot. We'll get into spoilers later, but more or less, story-wise, I found it a little meandering. Now, it is a very linear game, but it doesn't have to be. You can explore, you can search in these random encounters and look for items, grind experience, all that, but really, it is going to be point A to B to C to D, and they give you a fast travel late in the game, but it doesn't allow you to fast travel to everywhere. So you can fast travel within a continent, but then you have to take the passageway to get to the other continent, fast travel within there, and then go on and so on and so forth. And because of the cumbersome nature of that, I really didn't end up using it, because there are, what you do is you eventually start collecting dragon powers. So you find these crystals that give you the power of dragon forms, and then you can get these one use per essentially per rest, so between when you rest and an inn, 1 use per rest things to use in encounters that the dragons will give you. I think I found about 4 of them. I found the rock dragon, I found the one in the trees, and a lot of these will be hinted at by NPCs, so you'll see trap trees, or whenever you get little red dialogue, then you open up a new pathway on the map, and that's how you find fishing spots. And that's another thing, the fishing I enjoyed a lot more in Breath of Fire 3. I found the 1 and 4 was just a little bit too intricate. I don't know if it's because I didn't do it that much, but once I got to some of the better rods, I found that the fish weren't taking 5 minutes to reel in, but it just seemed like it took so long to reel them in. It felt like it was padding for the game. And same thing with the fairy village. The fairy village in Breath of Fire 3, I absolutely loved. I was obsessed with it. In this one, it just seemed like a cumbersome mess having to go to it and having to assign tasks, having to build buildings. The buildings you built don't really have much use to them except for being able to rest at one of them, because you can't rest and get all your stuff back, your health and mana back, if you rest at a tent, but you can at the fairy village. Yeah, I was a little disappointed by those. That's kind of how I felt about the whole thing, is it felt like they tried to make everything bigger and better, but it kind of lost the through line that I enjoyed so much from the third one. Now, bear in mind, the third one I played 20 years ago and I haven't played since, so a lot of this is probably rose-tinted glasses, but that's how I feel about it. And as far as the combat goes, now the combat is very good, but it also, because of it being very good, has some flaws in it. So you can eventually get up to 6 characters. You have 3 in the front line, but then you have 3 in the reserves. But the nice thing about this game is that you can swap out one of your guys from the reserves any turn, and they'll jump right into the order, and it's as if you have 6 players you're pulling from, but only 3 can be attacked at any time. And even then, when they're in the reserves, sometimes they'll randomly help out the group. So Nina will heal you, Urshin will attack, and then the other ones will sleep and recover attack points as their mana, so AP, or they'll recover health. Also, while you're in these fights, people in the back line naturally will recover AP, but it'll be temporary AP. So you see it on the bar, it'll be blue instead of purple. So this becomes really helpful where it's like, oh, I'm going to fight where it doesn't require a lot of healing, but at times I'll need some burst healing. So I can leave Nina or Siasis in the back once they've gotten low. Oh, cool, they've got enough to give a rejuvenate up. Let's get them back in the front line. Let's rejuvenate. Let's kick them back to the back. So it makes it so that the battles are very fluid and active, but at the same time, it makes it so that it makes it slower. So the fights can be slower sometimes, and also less dramatic, I guess I'd say. Like there's not very much intensity in who you pick or what you do, because you have everyone at every time, so there isn't much stress on that. And to counteract that, they've made a system where you can bolster your magic attacks by combining them into a combo system. But you have to play the right magic before the magic that will then combo with it. So fire, you play wind after. You play ice after wind. You play earth after ice. But sometimes they won't combo. It's a random thing, so it won't combo all the time. It's maybe like an 80-90% shot. And by comboing it, you can take a regular typhoon and turn it into a giga flare, or you can make these bigger attacks that usually are area effects and are good. But at the same time, it slows down the animations. Like I like in a lot of these RPGs, sometimes I just want to attack with my melee weapons, so I don't have to think as much. And I don't mind that so much on boss fights, but I found that some of just the regular encounters, you would fight up against people that had ridiculous dodge or evade chances, like the little gnome dudes or the little woodwork guys, look like Pinocchios. And sometimes it takes so much longer to see the animations that you just want to blast through it. Like I don't have to see the Blizzard animation take so long. And this is a small gripe, but this is also a gripe that I know people would have, because it takes so much time. It's a 40-hour game, definitely, and you got to think about, what, an hour and a half of seeing these animations. They take so long. Same thing with the enemies. The enemies take a while too. Now, the dragon transformation, also you can do it any time by meditating, and then Ryu transforms. The one I liked the most was the Kaiser one, which is the powerful one, but you can't control it unless you find all the dragon forms in the world, which I didn't do. And even then, it's just the animations between them going to use their breath attack is even, they allow you to skip portions of it, but it's still going to be like, not Knights of the Round status by any means, but it does get to that point where it's like, okay, can we just have some... Like, at a certain point, I just want them to do melee attacks. Can't the enemies do it too? And the way you get some of the abilities also is by stealing them from the enemies. And the way you do that is you have to guard. And when they use so you can guard, and they might not use the ability. But when they do use the ability, it'll turn blue. Instead of have the black text, it'll have blue text. And then you'll know, okay, someone can get it. It won't always be the person who's guarded. Now, I don't know the exacts. Maybe it can be anyone who guards, or it's just random who learns it. But that is how you do it. And then also you can later assign those in the tent to other people, but I never did anything like that. And I didn't really find it that necessary. Overall, enjoyed the game, but let's talk about some minor spoilers right now. The storyline is basically you're looking for Alina. You find Alina at the end of the game. She's been turned into a monster, and you have to kill her. And then after that, Fou-Lou and Ryu meet up, and you have to destroy Fou-Lou. And then that's because he wants to destroy the world. And then Ryu's option, if you have the good ending, is to banish all the gods. So kick all the dragons out, including his own immortality, and then they all become mortal. It's a very interesting plot thread. I don't know if it's a very good one for a 40-hour game. There's not enough peaks and valleys and character development. You swap between playing as Ryu and Fou-Lou or Fou-Lou throughout the game. But the Fou-Lou segments, you're just so overpowered. It just seems like it's a break in the action, almost like when you're almost like watching Stranger Things season 4 and you go to the Lenora storyline where it's like, all right, no one cares about them. Let's get back to the actual game, because it's hard to know because you sympathize with Fou-Lou. He's actually the villain? Okay. Like there is some villains throughout the game, but you defeat them relatively early on. I mean, once Ryu unlocks the Kaiser form, you take out the one that's following him, and then Fou-Lou defeats the little gnome dude who is the one that's kind of terrorizing him throughout the game. And after that, it's kind of like, oh, so it's just gonna be them mashing up? Okay, all right. It just didn't have the same grand, complete feeling. I guess I don't know where I'm going with this. Anyways, Breath of Fire 4, I'm very happy to have played it, very happy to have beaten it, glad the disc worked. I was hoping for more. But if I'd still give it a rating, I think it's still up there. I'd give it probably an 8.5, 8.5. Alright guys, let me know what you thought of Breath of Fire 4. Let me know if you think it's better than Breath of Fire 3, because I think you're wrong. And it was so nice getting a hold of you. Take care.